theological store. We wanted leadership for mission. We wanted the sacrament of church basements. In other words, it's met in churches. We wanted the devotions to be a way to introduce us to the cloud of witnesses. And so our first consultant and director was Gail Ramshaw Schmidt at the time, who's done so much writing on the liturgy of the church. And so it was very intentional that those devotions where you remember the saints was a way to introduce a whole immigrant community and many people who were new to the faith, but also those who wanted to renew their faith, to the great cloud of witnesses. So that was very intentional that we do that. But the sacrament of the basement means, you know this better than I do, that the pedagogical power is the group. You learn from each other. And when pastors and other teachers who are sometimes weary with staring at confirmation kids, daring them not to bore them to death, are with a group of people that are energized by the gospel and asking important questions about their own life, that has a power. And so what happened those 30-some years ago is what happens every time Diakonia ends. Oh, this can't end. What's next? Pedagogy of the community, that is a part of a spiritual journey. Diakonia was intentionally chosen. A word study of Diakonia will show you that it's basically improvised service on behalf of Jesus, wherever needed. And a part of that pie beauty of the church in the world is that Diakonia, in other words, when we talk about that they may be one, and I'm giving you a tip on the sermon, it's not going to be necessarily because we sit down in ecumenical circles and, church body to church body. That's all a sign of it. But it's where you show up in the world every day with a spirit of service and a spirit of God being there. And that you evoke, you're part of helping people take their shoes off when the bush blows up. So it was intentionally chosen, and it was chosen because Diakonia is really the mark of Jesus, who thought equality with God not something to be grasped, but emptied himself and became obedient unto death, even death on a cross. So that word, and we've tended to be strict constructionists about the courses and the form. It's sort of like the Supreme Court judges. We tend to be strict constructionists. I'll tell you why. Diakonia came at a time in the church when leaders in the church weren't sure of their own good stuff. And so we had, we had, which is a great thing, CPE, education, but the medical model began to take over kind of what the church was. So basically, everyone was trying to ride their own hobby horse about what the church could or should be. We wanted to stay with the basics. And so that was very, very intentional. And then the order of deacon and that whole conversation animated a part of that. Both good and not so good. Good, in the Metropolitan New York Synod, Diakonia became sort of one of the paths toward a synodically authorized diaconate, which was very structured, laid out, with an internship and all those kinds of things. In New Jersey, at one of the graduations, one of the former bishops saw hands being laid on and all that and thought it was almost like a sect. And they've held it at arm's length ever since. Diakonia, over time, I think thrived because no church body took it over. It became the work of the people. It became the corporate diaconia of people like Rebecca and others. And so some of us were Johnny Appleseeds with this. I moved to New Jersey, and again, not because I wanted to continue diaconia, but I had a church that had lost a connection with this community. I needed leaders. I needed people confident in their faith who were willing to be missional leaders. And so Diakonia came there. It spread in New York. East Northport, Long Island. Pastor came to me and said, I've got a bunch of charismatics here. I want to teach them Lutheranism. So we went out to East Northport. John Heinemeyer and David Romerine came to us from the South Bronx and said, we need a seminary of the streets in the Bronx. Will you come to the Bronx? We always went where we were invited.
Amen.
But then graduates moved. And so they move and take it with them. And so Rebecca came here, got to know people in Northern Illinois. Then other people got involved, and so someone formerly on my staff, Sandy Krastowski, had been our director for Evangelical Mission in Milwaukee, and she had started it in Milwaukee, and others moved here, there, and everywhere, and so it is now in 12 synods.